Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're going to get a little more specific. I try to be very general, and it's very difficult sometimes, but let's talk about the 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The 17th Amendment provided primarily for direct election of senators. It was very progressive. It was very specifically a progressive amendment. The whole idea being to reduce the levels of representation because you want direct democracy. The problem, of course, being the direct democracy does scary things. It reduces the ability of minorities to have a voice. One of the things you have to understand is every movement that demands a reduction in representation because there's a minority that is hated. That's what is going on right now. In the United States, there's a battle. Why should Montana be able to tell us what to do? Why should Montana have enough votes to have a veto? They only have X number of people. We have an argument about that, about direct democracy and absolute majoritarianism, and that states shouldn't have a minimum amount of representation regardless of population. There's no reason for that. There's a large movement for direct election of the President of the United States, who shouldn't realistically be selected in that fashion. Senators, once upon a time, before the 17th Amendment, were elected by the state legislatures. And there's some really interesting stuff about that because, one, it makes you more interested in your local politics. It demands that if you care about federal politics, you have to pay attention to state politics. And that's actually a really useful thing. You do actually want to keep things on a local level. A lot of what our political landscape looks like right now is based on taking people out of their locality and trying to build big mythological level threats and advantages and disadvantages in wars. Okay, the culture war is literally a war in heaven. Okay, and then they want you to take that religious view of the war in heaven and bring it to your local coffee shop and deny access to your neighbor because he said the wrong thing last week. And I'm not kidding. This is right there what they're doing. So the 17th Amendment took the state legislatures out of the picture for all federal matters, except the electors, the presidential elections. It was an incredible reduction in states' significance. This is the problem that we have with this. It's not that I don't want your vote to count. I don't care how we pick our senators, but to remove the state, to remove your local polity from the decision-making process seems to me to be a way of making your community, your state, less significant, less important, less powerful, and that ties more power to the central, federal, elitist, administrative government. So, I honestly, repeal the 17th Amendment would be a fantastic thing. Now, there's some weird things I would add into that. I think that a senator should be only elected with a 60% or better vote. And if you end up in a state that has single party control, then you have a single party control. That's just how it goes. You'll notice that state legislatures tend to have a lot less of that all or nothing character, okay? And that state legislatures don't always match what the national parties are doing or how they're representing. And that's something that's actually it's it's kind of a warning sign in the system. If all of your state legislatures, not all, but if a majority of them are Republican, but you end up with a majority of those Republican state legislatures having Democratic senators, you've obviously got a problem. Now, how much of that do you look for before you start to say, hey, this is a problem? The idea, two senators. So one of the ideas here being that if you've got a fairly evenly, a non two-thirds majority, 65% pick one, assembly, state legislature, whichever it is, Senate or assembly or both, it could be both, whichever way you're doing this. If you can't get that much support for one candidate without having making the deals to support the other candidate at the next election, you have to work together more. There's a lot less divisive politics allowed if the state legislature picks the senator and it requires 60%, like something more than just the bare majority, because that's it's a big deal. So you can trace a lot of our current political problems actually to the 17th Amendment, and this is not something popular. This is not something that a lot of historians or history buffs actually do. They don't want to look at it this way, because even our more conservative voices have grown up with an idea of more direct democracy on a federal level than we were designed to have, strictly speaking. So, the 17th Amendment gave us popularity contests for the Senate, which led directly down a path of years, in the end with post-Nixon reforms, to the dominance of federal level, national level parties. It wasn't, George Washington's warning wasn't against having a two-party system as such. It was against having two national level parties. There will always be parties. You can't not do that. The problem we have here isn't even that we divide mostly into two parties. The problem is that we have national level parties, because they're the ones who control all of the elections are populist, mass democratic, media informed elections. So it's the national parties that control how you pick, who you pick for senator. Okay? They control the purse strings, the money, the ideology. Everything flows down from a central authority for the party instead of coming from the bottom up, which is what we had before the 17th Amendment. Very specifically, before the 17th Amendment. So, there you go. No one really thinks about this. What's the deal with the 17th Amendment? The deal is that your state legislature doesn't matter anymore. It means that they can get more isolated and corrupt because they don't matter to you. But it also means that they don't matter to the federal government. Their powers, your state's satisfaction with the union has less to do with how things work, because senators are elected based on a federally funded, a national level funding popularity contest. So, maybe we should rescind the 17th Amendment. Have a good one, guys.